How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to another episode of the Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, we bringing back a very special guest, Alex Blomstrom from Alex Blom Creates. You guys might recall I did an interview with her just a few short months ago. Alex has a lot of followers on social media, and basically a lot of them fall into kind of the demographic range of Gen Z and younger millennials. They came back to Alex, had a lot of questions, and we're just looking for some financial tips on basic things, finance wise that they should be looking at. So I am going to attempt to answer some of these questions today. And with that, I am going to bring Alex in. How are we doing today, Alex?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be back on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, always great to have you. Always great to have you here. So, what I did today was I kind of put a little PowerPoint together for us to help kind of guide us and walk us through here as we go over some of the things here we want to touch on. So, I'm just going to bring that up real quick.
Perfect.
So, with the slides that we're looking at here, first couple things I would like to touch on are things to do and then things to stay away from. So my suggestion on things to do are seek advice from professionals, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Leverage your existing network, in other words, who are the people that you know, family, friends, maybe other business associates. We're trying to preface this to the crowd. So in other words, if you're in your, say, early 20s, you probably haven't built that extensive of a network yet, but we're going to get to that. But so we're approaching this from the point of view of, say, somebody who's in the age of, say, 18 to 25, who's kind of just getting started in life, so to speak, and they're starting to build their network and the people around them. So, leverage that existing network and then make sure to ask for help from experienced people. In other words, that could be your parents, could be friends, could be family members. So those are things to do. Here are some things that my suggestion, things to stay away from, at least until you're a little bit more seasoned with investing and your finances and stuff. So certainly gambling, stay away from the DraftKings, stock trading, stay away from Robinhood, and cryptocurrency. And like I said, at least until you kind of get a little bit more knowledge around those items. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on this, Alex?
I have found it absolutely invaluable to seek advice from professionals when I'm at a standstill of not really knowing what direction to go next. Since starting my business, I met with representatives from a small business development association. Through the process, when starting bank accounts, you go in, you meet with a representative at the bank. It goes such a long way to talk to someone face to face, whether it be over a Zoom call like this, or actually going into a branch or tax professional's office to sit down and ask the questions.
So, and you hit on something very, very key right there, and that is to meet the person face to face, establish that relationship with the individual so that you now have that relationship. In other words, don't just rely on email, text messages, phone calls. In other words, you want to actually establish a real face to face relationship with that person.
Absolutely. I think the last time I was on, I touched a lot about how valuable the internet is and how there's so many answers at our fingertips. So many questions are a Google search away. But when it comes to things like finances and taxes and starting a small business, I think that it is so important to sit down and meet with those professionals because they are there to answer any questions you have. That is their job. And you shouldn't feel silly for the questions that you come up with because they are there to answer them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, I've said this to, I think, many people over the years, and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with communicating with somebody through text messages and emails and things like that, phone calls. But I do think that, at the very beginning, I think you should try to establish that face-to-face contact with the individual, get that relationship going. And then after you've established that relationship, after you've established that comfort level with the other person, then I think it's totally okay to, communicate in whatever way that you feel most comfortable with communicating.
I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The first time I ever met with a financial advisor, I had sat down with them and over over a phone call or over email, me asking them to explain things to me like I'm 5, which I did and have no shame in doing, that comes across a lot differently over an email than it does face to face. And you need to be willing to learn and willing to have whatever thoughts you have about something in your head from your previous experience might not be the way that things actually are once you start putting whatever it is into practice. And I think it's important to just shed any bias that you might have going into it and have an open and honest conversation. And get better from there in the long run.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that yeah, and I would say to people too, like, don't be intimidated. Like, don't be
Yes.
afraid to go out and meet somebody face to face. Like again, like Alex said, everybody starts out in that place. Everybody is 18 years old or 20 years old once, and everybody is uncomfortable the first time you sit down and you try to talk to an insurance agent or a banker or a financial advisor or whatever it may be. And so just again, those individuals, they're there to help you. So don't be afraid, and don't be intimidated to go and talk with a professional out there, because they're there to help you, and they want to help you. That's the most important thing. They want to help you. So don't be afraid to go out and make that connection. So okay, with that being said, let's move to the next slide here. And so on this slide, what I wanted to focus on was a couple of tips for just good financial habits. And then we're going to talk, which I'm sure Alex is going to have some good comments on, and that's building your team. So good. What are some good financial habits? Make a budget, live below your means, manage your debt. So whatever debt you have, whether it be student debt, an auto loan, credit card debt, make sure you're managing that debt. Don't let it get too unwieldy. Save your money. Make sure that you're making that consistent habit of saving some money every month, and then make sure that you're building and you're monitoring your personal credit. And we'll get into a couple of these things a little bit more in depth in just a minute on our last slide. But then after you kind of establish these good habits, now we need to go and start work on building your team. And when I say build your team, I mean getting an attorney, getting a CPA, getting an insurance agent, getting a banker, getting a financial advisor. These are all individuals. These are all people that you're going to need at some point in your life, especially as you get into your later 20s and into your 30s. And as you start, you get a job, you're building a career, you're buying a house, all these kind of things, you're going to need to have all these people on your team. So with that being said, Alex, what was, if you, what was your, I guess I'll say, what was your experience in going through this?
So my experience, I learned the hard way to build a team. This was a great learning experience for me. I had gone through the process of registering copyrights for some of my artwork. I tried to go through it myself to save a few dollars, trying to do a good financial habit there. But I learned in the long run, it's more important to build your team and have a professional do it. My copyrights had gotten denied, and all the money that I paid for the applications were down the toilet, which was okay because I learned from that to meet with an attorney and go through the process professionally with them. It might end up costing more money, but it's going to be filed completely correctly in the end. And that was what was most important. That was a little experience that I had. And from then on, it really helped establish to me the importance of building a team, of seeking professional help to get things done, because I'm not supposed to know the ins and out of every process.
Let me ask you a question. So when I have listed here these good financial habits, if you will, did you feel
Yes.
like, for you personally, did you feel like you kind of had had your arms around these things before you started your business, or you still kind of getting it, kind of developing that?
I think that good financial habits are constantly developing. However, going into starting my business, I've always been someone who sort of naturally lives below my means. I don't like spending excess money on things, and I am
Mhm.
admittedly a little frugal. I use those like flash food apps and things like that just to save money, because growing up, I was always taught that saving every penny counts, and the pennies add
Mhm.
up to dollars, add up to tens to hundreds. And as I've grown up, I've seen that in my day-to-day life and how important it is. So I've definitely carried that with me into the beginning of starting Alex Blom Creates. I did things made to order for the first year and a half of my business because I didn't feel comfortable living above my means within the business and spending money on inventory and selling it, whereas instead I was waiting for orders to come in, then I would purchase the inventory, create the product, and send it out. So that was the business model that I followed in the beginning to sort of really make sure that those good financial habits were built into my brand from the start.
Nice. And yeah, so and I would just add to that that I would say, when I've gone to elementary schools, high schools, and colleges a few times in the past to give, just not just small speeches, just to kind of talk to the students there about like how they were handling things and stuff like that. I would always tell them, like, for all the aspiring entrepreneurs, you've got before you leap into trying to start your own business and run that, you've got to make sure you've got your own personal affairs kind of in order, that you could kind of handle your personal stuff for first before you jump into the business world. Because what's going to happen is at some point, you might be in front of a banker and saying, hey, I want to borrow some money to take my business to the next level. And yeah, and one of the key things a banker is going to look at is, well, how are you personally? Like, are you able to manage your own personal affairs? Because that is what gives like a banker or a professional that's looking at giving you money. They want to know that, like, yeah, you can manage your own affairs before I give you money to go manage the affairs of whatever business it is that you're running. So that is a very key thing. And I think it's a thing that sometimes, younger people miss, or they're just not necessarily thinking about. So just again, there, just food for thought. So food for thought
Yeah,
on that one.
that's a great point.
Okay, now we're moving down to our last slide here. So here we have a couple of items here, and we didn't want to go like crazy in depth on all these things. We just wanted to try to touch on them. So what we have here is we've got budget, we've got credit cards, we got student loans, credit reports, and we've got what else we got? We got getting your first apartment, and then we just have insurance. So what I would say with a budget, like, so if you need to create a budget, there's a couple of easy ways to use. You could simply, the easiest way is just get out the old Excel spreadsheet and put together an Excel spreadsheet. What's your income? What are your expenses? What's left over? Real simple. If you wanted to get a little bit fancier, you could go out and get a system like Quicken, where, Quicken, you could download all your bank information to it, and it'll put together some nice little charts, and you can set little goals and stuff like that. It's always helpful. With the credit report, I always recommend to people, you can go to www.annualcreditreport.com. Now, at Annual Credit Report, it will give you a free copy of all three credit bureaus, which are TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And if you want to pay a few dollars, I think it's maybe like $8, you can get your credit score. So maybe $21 will get you all three credit scores from each credit bureau. And, so you do have to pay for that, but you can get a free report every year. And that's usually the website I recommend people go through. So you always want to check your credit report every year, and you definitely want to monitor, just what's going on there. Student loans, I put up there a little note. I did a whole episode, episode number 13 on student loans. If you want to go back and check that out, I really kind of get a lot more in depth about, like, what's going on with that, and offer some deeper advice on how you might want to think about going about handling student loans. Credit cards, I always say, you shouldn't have more than 2 credit cards. You should just get, one credit card that you use all the time, and just have one as like a backup emergency credit card. And then we could kind of talk a little bit more about that. And then as far as getting your first apartment, just some helpful things you're going to need to know. You're going to need to have money for a deposit. You're going to need to get what's called renter's insurance. You're obviously going to have a job. You have some stable income. And then you're going to have some, you're going to have to establish some level of credit. It might not need to be like the best credit ever, but you're going to have to establish something. And then as far as insurance goes, usually the 2 basic things that people start with in life are usually car insurance, and then you get into renter's insurance when you buy an apartment. And then obviously as you get a house, you might get, homeowner's insurance, and then you might get into life insurance. So those are just, but the two I would focus on right now are just car insurance and renter's insurance. And renter's insurance is what you need when you get an apartment. You need that insurance just to kind of cover all your belongings in the apartment. So I know that was a lot there, but what do you think? Any thoughts on that, Alex?
Yes, I have loved using a tool called NerdWallet for
Uh,
looking for credit cards, so I wanted to shout that one out. I'm not sure what your opinion is on Credit Karma, but I do monitor that to keep
yeah.
track of my credit score. And I downloaded that years ago around when I first started my business, and it's been really neat to see the impacts on what is making your credit fluctuate. And it really walks it through in a very basic way to help you understand the ins and outs of it. And then from there, you can ask more uh, specific questions to a professional.
No, I think those are excellent recommendations, Alex. Yeah, I mean, NerdWallet, Credit Karma. I mean, yeah, those are excellent ones, and people should definitely seek those out if they're not familiar with those apps. They should definitely go check them out. I agree 100%. Let me ask you this: from the questions that you have gotten online from people over social media, is do you think what we've kind of covered here today? You think this kind of covers maybe a lot of those questions, or do you think that there's anything we might have missed?
I think you really covered it. I think it's a really common misconception when you start a business that you have to have all of this capital up front.
Hmm.
Whereas in reality, there are ways to do it without spending an obscene amount of money. And it seems like there's so many questions that have to get answered. And while I think it's important to just take the first step and start, I think that the utmost important thing is to being able to ask a professional when it comes to the serious things like taxes and credit and insurance when you're starting a business and when you're just starting off on your own financial journey personally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would also add to that that if you are thinking about starting a business and you're a younger individual, I would say there's a lot of great free resources out there you should check out. There's the Small Business Administration, the SBA. There's an organization called SCORE, which is a
Yes.
SCORE, which is a nonprofit. They will actually help you build a business plan for free. There are, depending on what area you live in, where you're at, there's a thing called Small Business Development Centers, an SBDC. A lot of colleges usually have a small business development center, and that's usually where you could come there. They will usually there'll be a lot of college students that will actually help you work on a business plan, help you develop your business, and this is all free. You also
Yeah,
have
I
the
use that.
or yeah, oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
used the Small Business
Oh,
Development
oh,
Center. Yeah, when I
oh,
started
perfect.
VC, yeah, they got me. I had to mention they're the ones that got me set up with registering like a tax ID number for my business, and it's a free service, and they're there to help and answer the questions that you have. They're awesome. I can't recommend them enough.
Oh, fantastic! Hey, I couldn't ask for a
Yeah,
better lead-in. Perfect. That's
yeah. I was
fantastic.
like, my ears perked up
Um,
when you said that.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And the last thing I would say is there's the National Small Business Association, the NSBA, National Small Business Association. Now that is a membership organization, so you do have to pay to join once you have established your business. But I do believe they have some free services though. They got a great website. There's just a lot of resources and things on there that you could check out and go take a look at. So definitely some really good resources out there if you're thinking about I would say, because before you get fully committed and you get in there and you start spending money, it's definitely worth the exercise to go to some of these groups, start writing a business plan, kind of flesh out what it is you want to do and how you want to do it, and try to get an idea of what the costs are and how realistic it's going to be for you to get that business off the ground. So just good food for thought, some good things to think about. And but I would also add that I really appreciate Alex, kind of bringing this up, because I think these are great topics, and I think there are a lot of young people out there. One of the things that Alex and I talked about was how there is so much information at everybody's fingertips, but there's also it's also like getting hit with like a fire hose. Like it's so much, it could be so overwhelming that, sometimes it does help to just go through this exercise of just boiling it down and keeping some real simple points. And I think that really helps people.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that this was really helpful. And I like the way that you provided these tips in the end and I definitely recommend the student loan episode as well. That I listened to and really benefited from as well.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm gonna just take this out for a second. So, any final thoughts or anything before we kind of wrap up today, Alex?
No, I think I really loved everything that you covered. Above all, it's important to ask questions and don't be afraid to ask them. There are people whose careers and jobs are to help you in specific areas. And it's just important to not be afraid to ask because you're only going to set yourself up for success the more information that you have coming in. And if it's not all coming from random Google articles, then that's even better.
No, and I'll tell you what, I really appreciate you bringing this topic to me because I think it's a great topic, and I hope that as you share this interview with people online, with your social media followers, that hopefully they will find some really good value in this. And certainly, let's keep the conversation going. I mean, if you get more feedback, if they ask more questions, and you want to come back on with stuff, like, yeah, absolutely, let's keep it rolling. I'm hoping that this will kind of be a starting point. Like this will be a good, kind of kickoff for us. And that as more questions or people are curious about things, that they'll ask, and hopefully we can continue to provide people with some good feedback.
Absolutely. I would love that. And I'll definitely keep a gauge on responses and any feedback that comes in along the way.
Great. And then, so last thing, if people want to go check you out, Alex, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way to find me is on Instagram or TikTok at alexblom.creates, or you can check out my website, which is alexblomcreates.com. You can
Oh,
send me an email as well at hello@alexblomcreates.com.
awesome. Fantastic. Well, we, again, love having you, Alex. I really appreciate you coming on, and we definitely hope to talk with you again real soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Alex. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Alex Blom Creates. It's always a pleasure having her on. And please make sure to go and check out some of the episodes that I'll be posting this weekend. A lot of great content out there right now. And don't forget, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. So please make sure to like, subscribe, share. That always helps the channel. And I will be back again real soon to see everybody. Thanks a lot, and have a great day out there.